All right, so you can start with your name, the position you're running for, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Weingart. I am running for Cuyahoga County Executive. So I am 55 years old. I've been married for 28 years to the same woman. We have 3 children, Lizzie, Ned, and Ethan. I started a small business in 2002 that I run today called LNE Group, which is named for our 3 children. And we are the largest combined federal and state government affairs firm in the state of Ohio. Over the last 20 years, we've secured something like $800 million for important causes in the state of Ohio. Prior to being the president of LNE Group, I was one of the last people to serve as county commissioner under the old process where we had 3 commissioners and various elected officials. So I bring to this race, the experience of being a county commissioner. I've run the county before, and the experience of knowing how government works for the last 20 years running my firm. So unlike other candidates in this race who have neither of those 2 things, experience in government or experience working with the government as I have, I believe that it stands me apart from the other people who are seeking to become Cuyahoga County Executive.
Great. Historically, minority-owned firms have gotten less than 1% of funding from the county. If you were elected to county executive, would you A, agree to increase the set-aside contracts from 5 to 10%, and B, get rid of the good faith effort provision in that contract process?
The simple answer is yes, but let me give you a more complex answer. Cuyahoga County every year spends about $400 million with outside contractors. In almost every RFP that the county issues, there's a requirement that at least 5% of the contract volume be let to a disadvantaged business, which can be Black-owned, Latino-owned, woman-owned, or veteran-owned. There's also, in each RFP, what's called a good faith exception. So if you say you made a good faith effort to find a minority partner and couldn't find one, then you are exempted from the 5% requirement. Now, they don't audit what it means to make a good faith effort. And so, as a consequence, less than 1% of all county contracting goes to disadvantaged businesses, and a lot less than 1% goes to Black-owned businesses. So what I'll do as county executive is the following. First, every contract will have a minimum of 10% contract volume going to a disadvantaged business. And I will eliminate the good faith effort. It'll be a very simple process, pass, fail. If you bring me a contract without a partner, I will not sign it. There'll be no contract signed with majority contractors who do not bring with them a minority partner that has at least 10% of the contract volume. That's where we start. We'll also look at situations where the minimum is 25%, and that will depend on the number of eligible disadvantaged businesses in the community that can compete for that work. If there are enough disadvantaged businesses, then I'll raise the threshold to 25% from 10%. Then finally, there'll be certain contracts that are 100% set aside for disadvantaged businesses. There's a concept in Washington, D.C. called the GSA schedule. It's only for small businesses. The federal government must contract a certain percentage of its business off the GSA schedule with small businesses that are qualified on that schedule. So I'll create the same thing in Cuyahoga County. There'll be certain contracts that only disadvantaged businesses can compete for. So there'll be 100% contract owner. That gives them the opportunity to manage the contract, manage invoicing and administration, and get out from under the wing of a majority contractor. They become a contractor who can stand on their own 2 feet. Also importantly, I'm going to dramatically streamline the process of becoming a certified disadvantaged business. Right now, it is very difficult. The requirements are onerous, and so many disadvantaged businesses do not become certified because of these requirements. I will make it much easier and much faster for a qualified disadvantaged business to get that certification with Cuyahoga County, and I would hope other government bodies would follow our lead in doing that.
With Ohio being number 3 of all 50 states in terms of human trafficking cases, what kind of support would you give for women who have been human trafficked, and how would you go about giving that support?
So Cuyahoga County maintains a human trafficking task force that's run by the sheriff's office. My view is there are not enough sheriff deputies available right now to do the important work of stopping human trafficking, drug rings, and other major crimes. So right now there are about 150 sheriff's deputies. I would add 100 deputies within my first 2 years as being county executive. I would task them on major crime solving investigation like human trafficking, but also have them work with local police departments like Cleveland and East Cleveland and Cleveland Heights, for example, so that they can do more of the work of investigating major crimes like human trafficking and allow more officers to be on the streets investigating and solving crimes at the source. We also have to deal with the victims of human trafficking. Last year, I think there were about 60 or so that were found. Now we know that there are many more who are not found. And hopefully under my system with more sheriff's deputies, we will find more victims of human trafficking. But those that we find need special support. So I'll make sure that, for example, the Adams Board, which deals with addiction and mental health, has money set aside to help women and men who are victims of human trafficking. So on the first hand, we try and stop human trafficking by increasing the number of sheriff's deputies and putting them on the job of investigating and stopping human trafficking. On the second hand, as we find victims, we give them the treatment and compassion that they need to get back on their feet.
With Cleveland being one of the healthcare capitals of the world, if elected, what will you do to reduce health disparities across the county?
So there are major health disparities in Cuyahoga County, particularly in the urban core of the county. I think that's because we don't have enough neighborhood-based clinic primary care services in our neighborhoods. We have wonderful institutions. In University of SoCo, for example, you've got the clinic, you've got UH, you have Metro on the near west side. But if you live in Huff or Mount Pleasant or Fairfax, it can be difficult to get primary care. So I attended the ribbon cutting of Village of Healing in Euclid, which is a brand new grassroots healing hospital organization that focuses on the needs of women, particularly women who are pregnant. And so they do everything up to deliver the baby. We need to have more institutions like this at the local level, not just for maternal care and infant care, but for primary care. The way you close the disparity gap in healthcare in Cuyahoga County is making healthcare more available and more accessible to those who live in the urban core. So I'd like to build on the model of the Village of Healing in Euclid, take that model across the urban core of Cuyahoga County to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to get good quality primary care. That's the way I think you close the disparity gap around healthcare in Cuyahoga County.
What will you do to increase home ownership in areas that have historically suffered from disinvestment and redlining?
So we know that the urban core of the country, not just Cuyahoga County, has suffered over the last 90 years because of discriminatory practices by governments, redlining, restrictive covenants. And so many of these things have ended, but the impact lives on. So in the 1930s, there were 3 federal programs that offered insured mortgages to families. When I say families, I mean white families. So this is how we got middle America, and this is how we got suburban America. So if you were a white family in the 1930s, you could go to one of these 3 programs and get an insured mortgage from the federal government that allowed you to buy a house. Over time, you could borrow against the house to put your kids through college. And 90 years later, the average white family has a net worth of $240,000. So go back 90 years. These programs are not made available to most Black families. Less than 2% of all the insured mortgages went to Black families. They instead got public housing and apartments. So fast forward 90 years, the average Black family's net worth is $24,000, 1/10 of the average white family. Studies show that 80% of that disparity can be traced back to the first home that was owned by the white family. You see, the value of home ownership over 90 years is dramatic. So I've got a program that's called 10,000 Homes for Cuyahoga County. $600 million program, $100 million from Cuyahoga County, leveraging $500 million from banks, mortgage companies, foundations, and other private sources to help 10,000 predominantly East Side and first ring suburban families build, buy, renovate, or repair a private home. This is not a program for landlords or renters. This is to move people who are in apartments or public housing into homes that they own. It's important for at least 3 reasons. First, we stabilize the family. That is the lesson of the book Evicted, which looked at 5 families in Milwaukee and how they struggled to find permanent housing as rental properties. If you take that struggle away from those families and you put them in homes that they own, Then they can focus on their children's education, on getting a job, and improving the life of their family. Secondly, we create intergenerational wealth for the first time in the city of Cleveland in probably 100 years, since we've seen intergenerational wealth generated in the city of Cleveland through homeownership. And then lastly, make our neighborhood safer. If you look at the Buckeye Woodhill neighborhood on the east side of Cleveland, for example, in 2016, most of the area was high crime. But over the course of 4 years, Habitat for Humanity built 60 homes in that neighborhood, so that today there's very little high crime area in Buckeye Woodhill. So I think through stabilizing families, generating intergenerational wealth, and making safer communities, we can radically change the landscape in the city of Cleveland and the first ring suburbs. And we do that through expanding private home ownership.
Why are you the best candidate for this seat?
Well, I think there are 4 qualities you should look for in a county executive. The first is experience. And as I mentioned earlier, I am the only person in this race who's served in public office. I was county commissioner when I was much younger, in my late 20s. Having experience, knowing how to run the government is important. When I became county commissioner in 1995, we were facing a $114 million budget deficit. I turned that to a $40 million budget surplus in 2 years without raising taxes. Secondly, vision. You can run for office to be somebody or to do something. I think people in this race, other people are running to be somebody. I'm running to do something. I've got my plan, Cuyahoga 2030, focuses on homeownership, on focusing job creation in the urban core, on an urban entrepreneurship program, a $10 million fund to help urban entrepreneurs get access to training and startup capital, criminal justice. I mean, if you go on my website, you can see I've really thought about what the county needs and what I want to do as county executive. So I got a vision that I'm bringing to the floor that other candidates simply don't have. Third, honesty. When I was county commissioner, we had no scandals in county government, and I've run my business honestly and my life honestly. So you can count on me to do the right thing for the people of Cuyahoga County. And then lastly, have a backbone. Enforce the rules against all people the same way. No insider deals. No one gets a break. We have to apply the rules as they stand. For example, in the case of contracting, we're not going to let a majority contractor weasel out of bringing a partner to the table because they say they made a good faith effort. Those days will be behind us. We'll make sure that when the rules are in place, they are enforced against all people equally.
Please tell us about a time you worked with someone you did not agree with to accomplish a task.
Well, Sherrod Brown and I are friendly, but we don't agree on very many things. I'm a Republican and he's a Democrat. But I've worked with Sherrod over the years to bring a lot of money back to Cuyahoga County. Just last year, for example, I secured $500,000 for Karamu House to finish off their capital campaign. Sherrod and I worked on that together. Also secured $500,000 for the United Black Fund to start a new entrepreneurship program for Black entrepreneurs, which will be a model for my $10 million program when I become county executive. So what I found in my 20 years as being a lobbyist is I don't agree with the people in DC on everything, but when it comes down to local issues like supporting a Karamu House, United Black Fund, or the YWCA, we find common ground and we execute on a plan that helps that organization thrive. So we put aside whatever partisan differences we have and we work together, which is what I'll do when I'm county executive. The county council is dominated by Democrats, and as you know, I'm a Republican. That doesn't stop me from working with them on my vision to make Cuyahoga County a better place to live for all of us. And so I've got a demonstrated record of working across the aisle in a bipartisan fashion to create solutions that help people. And that's what I'm going to do when I'm county executive.
All right. That is time. Thank you for the time for this
interview. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make a decision this week and get back to.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew.
Next week. Thanks.
Be well. Bye.
All right. Bye.